BBC Radio 2, Jeremy Vine here, just talking about no-deal Brexit. Everyone's saying, the MPs will vote against it, they'll take it off the table. As Chris Morris was saying, that doesn't mean it can't happen. We know that on March the 29th we're leaving. That's the default, that's in law. Unless something happens to delay it or whatever. We're joined just to talk about all this with Lord Peter Lilley, who says, no, we can get through no deal. It might actually be advantageous to this country. And Ernest, Remain campaigner, who thinks a no-deal Brexit would be a disaster. And Peter Lilley, I know you've had a Brexit leaflet out where you go through a lot of the no-deal stuff. What are people getting wrong? Because people are really worried about it.
Well, they were right to be worried 2 years ago before any plans had been made or preparations announced. Then there were fears that planes wouldn't fly. But now a mini deal's been done that planes will fly back and forth between the EU and the UK. They offered something if we reciprocated, and we agreed. There were worries that lorries, there wouldn't be enough licences for all the hauliers to operate on the continent. Now additional licences are being made available. That's solved. There were worries that aircraft wings wouldn't be exportable because the safety certificates wouldn't be recognised. The EU's agreed to recognise them. And so it goes on. So a whole range of mini deals have been agreed, which mean that if we leave with no withdrawal agreement, we will nonetheless have all these mini deals in place, and it should be quite smooth.
But I was just going to say, we had a listener on, you won't have heard, but about an hour ago, and her business is beauty, and she sells a lot through Amazon, and she's now having to register for VAT in 27 individual European countries, and she said it's driving her bonkers.
Well, there certainly it's not without problems.
It's costing her $6,000.
So there will be costs, but generally it would be the importer that would be registering for VAT. I would have thought she will export with zero VAT. I don't know her.
No, she just said that's what she was doing. But there will be costs to some people, right?
There will be some costs for some people, but mainly if you export, it's zero VAT. At the moment, and it will continue to be zero VAT. The VAT will be paid at the other end. OK.
Ernest, what do you think? We seem to be really worried about no deal, but actually some people saying it'll be fine, we'll get through it.
We probably will get through it, but that's not what was sold on the tin, is it? We were told it was going to be wonderful. My real concern is about EU citizens living here who've been in limbo for the last 2.5 years. And with no deal, they have no idea what their status is. And the same thing for people. We export services as a country. And I know lots and lots of people who work as contractors in Luxembourg, in Italy, on very short notice, they'll get a call that they've got work here, there or everywhere. And without an agreement, they don't know if they've got the right to work. So I think the things that could be really badly affected by a no deal are things like culture.
So somebody goes, let's say they're doing a singing tour around Europe.
Yes.
And they don't know whether they can sing for money in France and Germany.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Or if they're just doing a consultancy job, a tech job, a job in Italy. They don't know if they've got the right to work.
But now, we should know what happens to them after no deal, Peter, shouldn't we? We should have an idea.
We do know for musicians, I know that there is an agreement which covers 78 countries. It's not as good as just having no problems, but that there are arrangements so that if they're bringing instruments or orchestras or everything, it can be done without them having to pay, which was what they feared, duties on the stuff and paperwork when it comes back.
Yeah.
We should remember that before we ever joined, the Beatles played in Hamburg.
But the world has changed a lot, hasn't it?
It's changed in the direction of it being easier, not more difficult. So if it was possible then, it's even more possible now. And, they go to America, they go to Canada.
In services economy, accountancy, business, legal, all of those things that require people to move to sell their services.
My first job before we joined the EU was working in Holland and Belgium, and it wasn't much of a problem.
As a musician?
No, sadly not. Or for the sake of the world, mercifully not. No, there will be issues like that, and I entirely agree with Polly.
But people will need visas, won't they?
No. By and large, the EU's agreed that there'll be 90 days travel visa free.
But that's travel, not work, isn't it?
Yeah, work permits you're talking about. But
yes.
By and large, I hope. I'm afraid
but nothing's agreed, is it? It's not agreed. That's my real concern for people who are living here or people who are working, that they don't know. And it seems wrong that we should throw people in something which they don't know.
No, I entirely agree with you about people working here. We should have done, on day one, and I said this at the time, we should have unilaterally accepted the right of everybody who was here as EU citizens to remain, and said after a certain date, anyone coming after that will be treated differently.
But Polly's asking about
Sadly,
Brits who go over
there was a point she made first of all, and
Brits
I
who
agree.
go over there. Is it so? We're not clear whether they can work over there. Is that right?
I'm not clear.
I'm definitely not clear.
I suspect other people are clearer than me. That's not an issue I particularly looked into, except for musicians.
Okay.
And,
so going back to the tariffs and trade, Peter, which I know is your thing. This morning's announcement, it's all details and everything, but we're basically saying our tariffs will be imposed on this, that, and the other. And yet again, we come down to this Northern Ireland issue, and it's really difficult to work out how you police that border without having border checks.
No, at present we police the border, as they say, even though the rates of duty on alcohol, tobacco, red diesel and other things are different either side of the border. But we do it without checks at the border. People have to pay their duty electronically. If there's any reason to suspect people are smuggling, there's cooperation between the Irish authorities and the British authorities, and we go and inspect them at their place of dispatch or the place of arrival.
So there's already an Irish border in existence there?
There's an Irish border, but it doesn't involve checks at the border and it doesn't involve infrastructure at the border.
And that's all right because we agree the same rules on either side of that border.
No, they're different rules. They're different.
For red diesel and some other things.
And VAT is different.
So
VAT
the regulation is the same, isn't it? The rules are the same. The standards are the same.
Most standards are the same. And clearly, if there were different standards, then it would be, say we allow different standards of vacuum cleaners for Mr. Dyson in the UK from what apply in the EU. Then if someone were to take British vacuum cleaners across the border, the Irish would police it by trading standards in the shops. They wouldn't do it at the border. They wouldn't inspect every consignment.
Well, what about if someone wants to drive loads and loads of sheep across the border and sheep now have a tariff on them?
You just smuggle them, wouldn't you?
Well, you would smuggle them, wouldn't you?
You would be smuggling, wouldn't you?
I mean, there has been smuggling going on in the past, and there was, particularly when there was different rates of agricultural support around the EU. It was called the carousel, when I was actually responsible for customs, and that used to go on despite us being members of the EU, but we didn't actually police that at the border even then.
This is a convincing argument, Polly, that we don't need a border in Northern Ireland. There's effectively one there already. There's a map and there's a line.
It's a very long line, isn't it? And why are the people who live so close to that border so afraid? And I mean, I was talking to a really lovely Northern Irish politician yesterday, and they are really scared. And if this really isn't, why are we throwing ourselves? Why are we into this place we don't know where we're going to? Baroness Richmond this morning showed me a letter that she'd received from a Frenchman, and it simply said, "Dear Baroness Richmond, you are leaving Europe, but where are you going to?" And it's this fact that we don't have a plan of where we're going to that really bothers me.
Well, we're going to be an independent country which makes our own rules.
We are an independent country.
Well, we're not. We don't make our own laws, and we can't set our own tariffs, and we will be able to once we leave. Our relationship with Europe will be a bit like that of Canada to the United States. An independent country, very friendly. I hope we'll arrange free trade across the border.
Hope. That's what really bothers me, that it's hope, it's an aspiration.
I have to
life is based on aspirations to some degree.
We've got a really good deal now, haven't we? We've got the best deal now.
17.4 million people have voted to leave. We have to respect that or spit in their face.
No, we're not spitting in their face, but what we are saying is they were promised exactly the same benefits. They were promised sunlit uplands, they were promised cherries on cakes.
I wrote articles at the time.
Nigel Farage said, "What's wrong with Norway?"
Well, but during the campaign? Or
yes, during the campaign he said, "What's wrong with Norway?"
Anyway, I have to bring it to a close. I'm sorry, because I've got to play Aha.